Thanks everyone for tuning into the Three Circles Living podcast, where you can learn how to improve your life, no matter if you want to accelerate your professional career, have better relationships, be healthier, or find fulfillment and purpose in your life. This is a podcast for you. And today we're doing something a little bit different. We're actually doing it live, and we have people here with us. So if you're here live with us, feel free to put questions or comments in the chat. We'll make sure to get to them, just not like after we've done with the official program, so to speak.
Well, we
And
might drop something in. It depends,
yeah,
on how it rolls. We're pretty informal on this.
we are. And for anybody listening after the fact, please feel free to leave any comments or questions under the podcast or the video, whichever one you're going to watch. We are happy to get back to you as well after as well. So today, we have an amazing topic, a little biased, but I think it's going to be amazing. It's going to be about setting yourself up for an awesome year in 2026. And it's about, well, for me, I always look at it this time before the new year is I always want to get everything done and I want to get all the goals and resolutions ready. And next year is going to be different. But what if you didn't have to start 2026 with a lot of pressure and burnout and another long list of resolutions and things you're gonna do different? And what if you didn't have to feel guilty by mid-January that nothing of that is actually working, right? Every year, millions of people set New Year's resolutions, and research actually shows that 80 to 90% of them fail within the first 2 weeks. And it's not because people are lazy or they don't have willpower, but it's more because the resolutions are only built on those surface level motivation and not that real alignment. So today we want to talk about how 2026 can be different for you and how what you actually want to add to your life, what you might want to get rid of that to make it more successful and more awesome and really help you to get set up. And this is not about hype, it's not about hustle. It's really about clarity, honesty with yourself, and building a year that actually feels good to live and not just good to plan. So with that, let's get started. Hope you're ready for it. But let's start at the biggest thing. Resolutions versus goals. I just said it. A lot of people make resolutions, but 90% of them fail like within the first few weeks of the new year. Why?
Uh, Chris, I think you might be being generous. I think it's more than 90% actually. And and I think you get it with the word, right? I mean, I don't, this is just my perspective, of course, although I'm feeling like I've been around for a while now. But most people, those, I don't think they really truly think out resolutions. And resolutions shouldn't be confused with a goal. I mean, a goal is significantly considered, right? I mean, when you set a goal for something, you really kind of, well, at least if you're going to properly set a goal, you really dig in, right? You really have to look at what are your obstacles going to be and what literally what are your resources do you need and what are the things that you have to do and why is this goal important and all that's great. But I would submit to you, the majority of the population doesn't even like setting goals because their history with goals is not of achieving them. Most people haven't achieved most goals they've ever set, and present company included. I would be right there. I think it's more important to set commitments. Commitments are the thing. I don't have any problem saying that most goals I've set because I haven't made a New Year's resolution and I can't remember when, but I do set goals and I set goals typically every year, but I set them from the framework of a commitment. In other words, it's like there are some goals that are completely dependent and you control all of it. Like a fitness goal, you control all of it, right? That's completely up to you. You completely can control the amount of effort you put in and what that result ultimately is going to be. But when it comes to a business goal, you can't control all of that. There's too many factors you don't control. You can control your actions, but you can't control the marketplace. You can't control the people you're interdependent with. You can't control departmental goals. You can't control all these other things that come to play. And so I have no problem saying that most goals I've ever set in my life I haven't accomplished. But since I set them from the perspective of a commitment, they ended up making my life massively better because it wasn't about, hey, if I don't hit this goal and I just don't do this thing, it was relevant to what mattered. And so it goes all the way back to the philosophy. And I probably shouldn't even use the word philosophy because this is a fundamental. And a philosophy denotes that it's something you could consider maybe it is and maybe it isn't, but it's not. It's fundamental. You have to have the mindset first for what it is you're going to do. And then the mindset drives the commitment. And the commitment, the reason that word is so substantial is because whatever it is that you design to do, whether it's something for yourself physically, or whether it's a pursuit, or whether it's in your workplace, by definition, it's going to be greater than where you are now, right? It's going to represent change. It's going to represent improvement, which by the very definition of life itself means it's going to be hard. It's going to test you. There's going to be many days you don't feel like showing up, or you are going to show up, but you're not showing up at your best, or you're going to backpedal. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall down. You're going to have had a false assumption that you're going to act on that's going to blow up in your face. All that stuff is part of life, and it's going to be part of pursuing anything. And so the commitment drives the self-discipline to take the steps, right? You have to take the steps. And then self-discipline, the magic of self-discipline is that when you exercise self-discipline over a period of time, it no longer is self-discipline. It becomes habit. And when it becomes habit, that's the game changer, because then anything that becomes habit ultimately will become your lifestyle. That's why it's so important to be purposeful with your habits, because your lifestyle is going to be a product of them. And so when you look at a New Year's resolution and blow that word out and make it a New Year's commitment relative to things that matter, which, what we're going to do today is not give you this, do this, right? There's too much of that. We're going to give you multiple things to consider, all of which could come to bear on what's important to you. And then you can take that and figure out how it works for you, or how to break it down, or how to dive deeper into it. But the reality is that when you look at things like a commitment, then the flow is mindset, commitment, self-discipline, habit, lifestyle. You create things that are permanent, because if it's worth changing, it's worth sustaining. That's a very, very important thing to recognize. If it's worth changing, it's worth sustaining. It's not, I'm going to change my eating habits for 30 days. What's that going to do? Nothing. It's going to do nothing. It's actually going to make you feel worse in 6 months. Well, it'll make you feel bad in 31 days too, when you start going the other direction and you got the guilt thing going. But it's got to be commitment based. So that's why resolutions don't work for most people. A, they don't know how to set goals and they don't believe they're going to make them anyway. But B, they're too, yeah, I'm talking fast. I know, it's what I do when I get rolling. And so, you gotta look at it like a commitment, and it's got to have deep meaning, or it's just not going to happen.
I think that was my problem too for so many years. And resolutions were the trendy things to do. It's the New Year thing to do, right? But to actually understand that it's not just a snip of the finger that I make that resolution and everything's changing. I actually have to do it.
Yes,
I have to change it, and not just because it's a new year, it's automatic. And I think that is a big factor, that it usually has not worked for me. And I love the 5 things. I have to re-listen to it because I also could not write it down. But I think that is so important: the lifestyle, the habits, the change.
Let me slow play it. It's mindset, then commitment, then self-discipline, right? Which is going to come from commitment. You will not have self-discipline without commitment. That's just the reality of life because of the nature of how we're designed. Then from commitment will come habits, right? Where self-discipline will become habits. And then habits ultimately because the fruit will be so good when they are purposeful and positive, will become lifestyle, where you no longer have to think about it. It's what you do.
Amazing. Thank
All
you.
right, there it is.
There it is. But speaking about that, because when it comes to even setting new goals, right? Um, we talk about the things that we want in our lives, and it's mostly about we want to add something to our life. But I think what blocks a lot of people too is what they never think about, maybe the things that are already blocking them to get these new things, or things that they need to get rid of and to overcome. So, I for a long time didn't understand that I had fear of success, and I was not aligned with my habits and who I was, right? And well, I know we'll get into that as well. But what would you say, what are the things that block people, and how do they sabotage their own life to not be able to reach those goals and resolutions?
Yeah, well, this could be a 3-hour session on this
Yeah.
subject, but I'm going to make this really short. And it's so relevant that you say it the way you say it, because most people who do goal set or strategic plan, now you see in corporations that they have no choice but to obstacle plan, right? They have to do a SWOT analysis. They have to look at what could go wrong, and then what could go wrong if that went wrong, and then what could happen if this changed. Because if you don't do that, then you're setting yourself up for disaster, because what Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, something like that, right? Well, life punches you in the face every day. And, as soon as you have a plan and go to execute it, well, that plan's not worth the paper it's written on, from the perspective of preciseness, because it's not going to be that way. And so that's one set of it. And so I always taught obstacle planning when I taught goal setting, or it has to happen. But what you're talking about is actually deeper. We're all going to have obstacles that relate to the practical side of our life. That's a natural thing, right? We think things are going to be this way this year, and then 2 weeks later, something significant happens in our life, and that changes everything with how we are looking at our life, right? That's normal. But there's several things that are internal, and these are the biggest blocks, and things like confusion, right? Confusion, number one, right? People are so over informationed, they're confused. Right? I call it noise. And unfortunately, information is not necessarily knowledge or even fact in today's world. And if you don't truly know the source you're getting something from, that's worthless to you. It's worthless. It's so easy to fake expertise in today's world, right? Look for sources of information of someone who has been doing or done the thing you're trying to do for decades. That's a source you can trust, not some flashy person that you haven't never heard of before who's got great marketing. Marketing is not necessarily truth. It's just that, marketing. And as a result, there's so much fakeness. It creates a lot of confusion, and literally an ignoring of fundamentals. Fundamentals never fail. They've been true since the beginning of time, and they always will. And then you have other things like patience, right? Patience, which is an EQ issue, an emotional intelligence issue. Right? We're always going to be impatient. That's the nature of it. What we have to do is recognize that feeling and not give into it. Or comfort. Comfort is a significant factor in people's quest to improve, because improvement requires you to do something you're not doing right now, or do it at a level you're not willing to do right now, which means what? You're going to get uncomfortable. And we are in the greatest period of comfort. I call it the comfort crisis. And actually, I've been calling it that, and saw that in an article, saw that word and those two words together in an article recently written by a psychologist. We literally are in an age of comfort crisis. Our world is so incredibly comfortable that we think the slightest little tiny thing is it's scary because it's uncomfortable. And when, that is a significant barrier for people is, hey, and here's the reality. If you're not comfortable every day, you have to look in the mirror and go, what am I doing? What am I doing? Because I'm not going into life. I'm not leaning in. I'm leaning away, or I'm hiding, one of the two. Fear, of course, is another major issue. I always talk to people about flipping your fear. Don't fear the thing that you want to do, right? Fear not doing it. Fear the result of not doing this thing that is truly probably very important for you, and what the result would be if in fact you didn't deal with it now, because you will deal with it, right? Sooner or later, if it's important, you're going to deal with it. The question is, on whose terms are you going to deal with it? And then time, right? That's a common issue, is I don't have time. Of course you do. What you don't have maybe is energy, right? You may not have energy, because the more energy you have, the more time you have. That's currency in life. And yeah, maybe it's a function of planning and priorities, but it's typically energy. And then I think probably the biggest thing in our culture is self-worth, right? It is the obstacle of not believing you are worth more, you are worth having something, you are worth being something, which is the biggest lie there is, right? That's marketing and conditioning at its best, right? Everybody is of value. Everybody has a contribution to make. Every single human being is perfectly themselves. And so, all those are real, and they have to be acknowledged, if not dealt with.
Yes, I relate to all of them. And it had to, when you said like comfort, I'm like, I don't know when I was comfortable the last time, because there's always something going on. And if you're too comfortable, you're not gonna move on. Like you're gonna be stuck, and you're gonna repeat the same cycles over and over again. And then you're questioning yourself and feel the guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. No growth without discomfort.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So definitely hits home for me. But one of the things you said earlier in those 5 steps, you said um, you need commitment. You need to be committed to the goals, to the resolutions, whatever you want to call it, that you want to do in 2026. And so anything that's surface level though is not going to survive your typical day. And I'm just thinking about my day when I hear 90 times the word mom before I even hit noon, or like it's probably in the first 2 hours. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm already stressed for the day. I'm gonna start tomorrow, or I'm gonna put it off until tomorrow. I don't have the energy, you said it, the energy, the time, the commitment to do it today. How can you past this and get past this and really stay committed no matter what the everyday life throws at you? And we all know it's gonna throw stuff at you.
Yeah, I call this digging for gold. This is digging for gold. So, we always hear about why, right? Your why is more important than the how, because if your why is strong enough, you'll figure out how, right? Everything there wasn't a how first. There was a why, right? Then there was the how. Um, but there's different levels of why, right? So maybe someone has a goal to work hard and be promoted this year, right? And you say, well, why do you want that? Well, because it would mean more money, and it would mean more status, or more perks or whatever, right? And so that would be a why, right? And there's substance to that why, but there's a much deeper why that matters, and that is values based. And so what would that mean from a values based perspective? One, and two, how does that effect on your values base correspond with the rest of your values base? See, this is deeper dive stuff, but it's crucial, because what if you pursue a goal and you achieve it? So you satisfy the why that was connected to that goal. But when you get there, you realize that it cost you something more important to get it, right? It violated an actual deeper meaning value for you because you didn't take the time to figure it out. And so you literally, you won, but you lost. That doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, that's actually a three circles philosophy. Why would you pursue something? Why would you become successful in business at the expense of your health? That certainly doesn't make any sense. When you look at it in any dimension, it doesn't make any sense because you give it all back, right? So it's the same philosophy. You have to first clarify your values because your values are going to dictate what you will and will not do, and then they are going to be the core underlying driver of whatever your goal is, right? So, for example, everything that I've clarified my values so many times with freedom, health, family, service, peace, impacting others. Those values are very deep and very real for me. I do nothing that conflicts with those. Nothing. Everything goes through that filter. And so when I make a commitment or set a goal is in line with those things then serve to push that forward because then it's like, what else would I do? It's not even optional to consider not doing it because it's totally in line. That's what we're here for. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about that is you got to take some time. I can tell you that Brene Brown has some great stuff on values that you can look up. There's probably tons of other resources where you can find values lists. I never really use the values lists. I've looked at them and they're great because I've been doing this kind of work for so long. It was not hard for me to identify mine. But once you do that, that becomes the anchor that literally everything else drives out of.
And I want to emphasize that because I brushed over it so many times looking at values because again, there was a time when it was trendy to look at values and principles and all that stuff. And everybody had those lists and you choose five. And I'm like, there are like 50 on those. I don't know what my top five are. And I made the mistake to just choose, without really thinking about it. But really think about it. Dig deep for what is really important to you. And once you have them, everything will be in alignment based on it. Like you suddenly have more time, you suddenly understand why things couldn't work out beforehand. You suddenly gonna have success in areas where you never thought you will have success. And it's just interesting how it just all goes on the right track or back on track if you follow these values and principles and make sure that you not fact check, but cross check with them in your life. So I just wanted to emphasize this because don't make that mistake. Take your time and really understand what those values are because they will be your guide throughout everything else.
Yeah, and they're your values, right? Don't look at a
Yeah.
list and go, what do I think my values should be? You have to be completely honest. In everything you do, you got to be true to you. If you're not, you're already off the mark. You're already off the mark if you're not true to you. You're not living someone else's life. You're living yours.
Yes. Right. 100%. So I want to get into another point that I think will help to anyone to have a real transformation in their life, but it's not easy to actually do. And that is to take an honest look at yourself and ask yourself some hard questions and really be honest with you. And it might seem scary. It might be that maybe you're afraid and you're not asking yourself these questions now or having a hard time answering them because you're afraid of what the answer will be and knowing that you're maybe off the mark quite a bit, off the way you want to be. But if you don't ask them and if you're not honest with yourself, you're gonna tolerate things and that will drive you crazy down the road and will get you even further away from your goal and what you want to achieve. But I would love for you, Todd, to talk a little bit about that. how to really dig into those questions, and how to get to the point where you can be really honest with yourself.
Yeah, so this is mirror time, right? It's mirror time. It's you in the mirror. And just to make it really simple, think about, and I'm going to try to really concise this. You only get one life, as far as you know. You get one life. You have no idea how long it is. Right? You don't know. You don't know. There's no promise, and which tells you a lot, right? I mean, when you look at it in that lens, in that context, it tells you everything you need to know. That to run away from any question you need to ask yourself is ridiculous, because it's your life. And you if something is eating at you, you got to handle that, because it's affecting the only life you have. And so a really simple way to do this is first put it in the context of the three circles. One, put it in context of your health, put it in context of the people in your life, and put it in context of what you're pursuing. Right? What is your career path? What is the thing you're working on? Right? Just put it in those three things. And then there's a million questions. Right? You could come up with a million of your own questions. Here's a few. What's a symptom I'm ignoring? What is a symptom I'm ignoring? Ooh, this question alone keep you up at night, because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them in your health. There's a lot of them in your relationships. There's a lot of them in the way you feel about your work or how you're executing in your work. Another one is, what am I accepting that's actually unacceptable? That's another one. And it'll just punch you right in the face. But it's you punching you in the face. And clearly it needs to happen if you feel that way, right? It's, what am I accepting that's actually unacceptable? And how do you know it's unacceptable? Think about how you would feel in 10 years, talking to you in 10 years. And that person looking back at you and saying, are you kidding me? For the last 10 years, you let that go? How could you let that go? That's unacceptable. So it's not anybody else telling you it's unacceptable. It's you telling you it's unacceptable, because that's who you have to deal with. You got to deal with you. And I tell you, if you're anything like me, or actually you are in this regard, nobody is harder on you than you. Nobody. And that's, people might, you might give other people license, but that's something you can control. And then you're not going to like this question at all, but I'm going to definitely throw it at you. What do I really want, but have been too chicken to do something about? Oh, because I'm going to tell you that one, that is a guilt monster and a regret monster waiting to happen in your life. And so way better to just step right into it and fall on your face and deal with that temporary discomfort than to continue to try to hide from something you can't hide from. So, this is the nature of this call, just a bunch of things all in the same world for you to consider.
That last one is definitely, it doesn't matter which area of your life. Have been punched in the face multiple times if you don't address it. And if you don't address it and you feel like you can just push it under the rug and it's going to sit there, it will always come out. And at the worst moment, when you're not ready for it, and then it's going to be so much harder to deal with. So talking about it now is going to be, or figuring it out now, when you actually commit to it and take the time to do it, is going to be so much easier when things come out. And also, you said mirror time. Um, it's similar, but I just want to share it here too. Is if you look up Louise Hay, her word was mirror work, and she did a lot of great things with that. It starts really simple. It doesn't start with the big questions, but it is so worthy to look into it, to give you a good start and to give you some extra pointers as well to really get comfortable with yourself and where you want to go. All right, goals. So we talked about goals and how to set goals and all of that, and to be committed and everything. But I think having a goal is great, but you need like the little steps to help you guide you to that goal. And what would you say how to get to those non-negotiable helpers, guideposts that ensure that you're not gonna get away from your track, from your path, and really stay true and to what you want to go after?
It was, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 minutes ago, you said something about it was at one time trendy to do values and to do principles. And that's the kind of thing that cracks me up because it's the nature of all the noise. That
Mhm.
stuff is not trendy. It's fundamental. But it becomes trendy when someone says, "Hey, I'm the first one that ever thought of this." Really? I think the Stoics were talking about it 1,500 years ago, but that's all beside the point, right? I think Jesus was talking about it. I think, I think you can look around historically and it's been talked about forever. Why? Because it's the real stuff. And so for me, this one is very simple. Guideposts to me are a blend of your values, which is one area, right? Values are like the lane. That's like the field, right? It's like I ain't going outside of this field. If it's not in this field, I ain't playing, right? And then principles are like the rules you play on, the rules you play with on the field. And so principles are the next piece. And there are many. Personally, I've identified many for myself over the years, but just relative to this conversation and this time of year, some simple principles that I would encourage you to embrace are do not, do not sacrifice the long term for a short term gain. Do not do that because that will just continue to have you slipping backwards and spiraling down the whirlpool. That's exactly what it does. It's fool's gold. The second thing is everything is a process. Everything. Whatever it is you want to improve or you want to change, find the actual fundamental process, learn it, and work it. Don't don't waste 1 second of your time on some Instagram magic pill person, right? Don't spend time on the magic seminar dude. Just find the fundamental and work it. If you want to like figure out later how to tweak it using somebody's magic trick, fine. Once you've mastered the fundamentals, go look at that stuff. But otherwise, you're just burning time, burning money, and getting nowhere closer to where you want to go. The third thing would be no microwave. You can't microwave anything of value. Nothing of value happens fast. It takes time and it takes consistency. This is part of the rules. You can't shortcut the rules of life. That's like trying to beat Mother Nature. Have you noticed you can't beat Mother Nature? You can mess with Mother Nature, but then all of a sudden, before you know it, she's swinging a sledgehammer and you're right under it, right? It's just a function of time, right? You can't monkey with the rules in this way. These are fundamental human nature things. And then, of course, for me, the 3 circles in the right order. You have to get them in the right order. You can't think I'm gonna trick it. I'm gonna do business first and then my family and then my health. No, you're not. Then you're gonna be right where 95% of the population is, struggling with their health and struggling in their relationships. And their business is still whatever it is. And even if they are successful, they're not going to be sustainable. I know there are outliers. There's people like Elon Musk who work 24 hours a day and build billion-dollar companies. Most of us are not an outlier. We are the everyday population who can achieve great things on our own and meaningful things, but you can't live your life thinking you're going to be an outlier. If you are, and it'll show up. But most of us have to operate fundamentally the right way to get the right fruit in life. So those are the guideposts, right? There's more, but those are the primary ones for for this context.
Yeah, I would add to like just what you said. Don't expect you talked about processes and the foundations. Don't expect everything to be perfect like your first try. Like it's just not gonna happen. It can, again, it can, but most likely you won't get it just right because there are also different seasons that you're in and different value have or values have different um intensities of what's most important to you at some point. So just be patient with yourself and have some grace. Like it's not just gonna be perfect the first try.
It's never going to be perfect. It's never going
No,
to be
it's
perfect.
not. It's not.
I mean, I've never done anything perfect in my whole life, not one thing ever. So I don't worry about
No.
that because it ain't going to happen, right? This podcast isn't perfect. If we tried to get the perfect podcast, we'd never do one, right? It's bottom line.
Yes. And then also the other thing is, because you said about the follow the magic pill person on Instagram or the star seminar guy, whatever. Um, Understand, like really get it down to every wire of your body that your road is gonna look different than anybody else's. And you cannot compare yourself to somebody else, no matter your age, whatever. You have so many different experiences and history and your family and how you grew up and everything else that has an impact. So just know that you start somewhere and that's your first page of your book. It's
Mm.
completely empty and you can make it whatever you want it to. And take advice or the learnings from other people, but don't expect it to be the exact same.
That's great stuff right there, Chris. That was good stuff she just laid down right there.
Yeah, I said it for myself too. So
Yeah, it's good.
there's
Good.
that. All right. Oh my gosh, we talked about a lot of things already, but I think the other thing with goals that I want to also get your insights on because I think there's a lot there, is that we have this goal and we're focusing on this. And you touched on it like the right order of the three circles. But when we have this goal, we put everything into it and all of our energy and actions, but we often forget ourselves and to take care of the health and the relationships and to keep everything running besides that. What's your advice or recommendation to balance this?
So you're talking about the goose and the golden egg, basically,
Hmm.
right? I mean, that's the age-old dilemma, right? You start getting golden eggs, and you're like, let's get as many golden eggs as we can, and you kill the goose, right? I mean, that's the bottom line, right? So it's actually really, really simple from a philosophical and from an execution standpoint. And it's operating in what I call quadrant two in life. And this is a Stephen Covey philosophy with the priorities quadrant, which I've been teaching for 35 years. But you really only need to look at it from the two quadrants. So the top two quadrants. Quadrant one being things that are urgent and important, and quadrant two being things that are not urgent but important, right? And so first you have to acknowledge that you have to take care of the goose, right? If you look at any manufacturing plant, they have scheduled downtime and maintenance for every piece of equipment. Why? Because they can't run it endlessly. If they don't take care of the equipment, it breaks down. They no longer have throughput. They go out of business. That's it, right? And so we have to have that same kind of self-discipline, but really it's a planned thing, right? It's purposeful. So for example, if you look at life this way, the more time you spend in quadrant two, where you're dealing with things that are important, but they're not an emergency, right? They're not urgent. There's nothing wrong. You're in the proactive part of life. If you're in the quadrant one, you're in the space you don't want to be in, right? Quadrant one is reactive land. It's crisis land. It's where you're out of control. The money you spend in quadrant one is a cost. The money you spend in quadrant two is an investment, two entirely different animals, right? So you have no control in quadrant one. Things have blown up. And that is the result of not being purposeful with taking care of the goose in all things. And taking care of the goose is attending to all the things for a company that have to be done in a proactive nature, right? I mean, and you see this, again, I've trained companies for a long time. I've been in companies who operated in crisis management, high degrees of burnout, tremendous amounts of turnover, and ultimately they just failed. They just failed because that's not sustainable. The best people are like, I'm not living that way. You're not sucking me into that vortex for the rest of my life. Because if you bring me into that vortex, it's not just me, it's my family, it's my children. It's everything I touch, because that's how I'm gonna affect the world, is what that's doing to me. And so it comes down to this philosophy of when you think about a team of people working together, there has to be a balance between the task of the work and the relationship of the people. If it's all about the work, the relationships will blow up and the work will blow up. If it's all about the relationships, well, nothing gets done, right? So there's not going to be any work. Well, the same is true with the goose and the golden egg. You have to look at it like task and relationship. The relationship is with yourself, because in order to have consistent, sustainable golden eggs, which is the task is productivity, it's accomplishment, it's growth, it's all these positive, wonderful words of the things that you're trying to do. But you have to manage the relationship with yourself, which is the goose, right? You have to take care of yourself physically. You have to take care of yourself mentally. You have to take care of yourself spiritually, right? You got to manage all that stuff. And so it comes down to planning and execution. That's the bottom line. And you plan from that perspective. If you plan going back to the principles, everything has a process, right? So what do you plan? The things of the process that make something happen, right? For health and wellness, health, for example, wellness is a different word, but health, you plan. Exercise, you plan. The way you eat, you plan. The nutrients you take, you plan for good rest, right? You plan those things, right? You don't leave them to chance. Why? Because they're crucial. You don't leave things that are crucial to chance. Because chance will not favor you. Chance will favor whoever else is going to utilize you, right? That's the way life works. And then the same would be true in your business, whatever your business is. If it's in sales, you have to talk to people. You have to provide information about what you're doing. You have to do this before you need the result. You can't just go turn it on when you need the result. You can't just turn on health and wellness when you're sick. You're sick because you didn't turn it on, right? So it's funny, and this is a crazy little example, but it just happened. So I never opened. This is a piece of mail, right? So for those of you who are listening to the podcast during the on Podbean or Apple or something, I don't look at like the detail stuff we get, because I'm not a detail guy. I take care of the bills. But I happened to open this piece of mail because it related to medical, and I looked, and it was the underlying detail in our medical count for the year relative to spending towards deductibles, right? So, and I looked at this yesterday, and I have satisfied $483 of my deductible for the year. The year, right? The year ends tomorrow. That means I spent $483 in the medical world this year. 483. Do you know how fast you can spend $483 in the medical world? That was one dermatology appointment that is proactive. I do that because I'm in the sun all the time, so I have my skin checked every year. And the other was because I sustained an injury being a maniac. And even that I almost didn't go. Not a single penny spent on pharmaceutical medications of any sort, not to treat any sickness, not to treat any condition. Why? It's because at 64 years old, I spend my time health-wise in quadrant two. And as a result, I don't have any crisis as a general rule. Doesn't mean things don't happen. Last year I spent a lot because I landed on a nail running in the river, right? And had to go to the hospital after ignoring it. But so I spent, but that's it. That's what you want. That's how you want to live. You're always going to have some crisis, but you want that to be in a situation where it's easy to handle. And that comes from planning and executing in quadrant 2 on a daily basis.
Yeah, get to it before it becomes an emergency.
Yes, take care of the goose first, then
Yeah.
take care of the golden eggs. That's how it works.
And it's always interesting to me too. Like if you think when you disconnect and you actually take time to recharge and take time away from the busyness that you're missing out, but you're actually doing yourself a favor because you're setting yourself up for a fast start instead of like trying and make it and oh, it's so painful to do. You get it faster if you actually take care of those things.
Definitely.
And another thing you talked about it earlier because I feel like not taking care of yourself is a big factor when you're just focused on one goal and leaving that out of sight. But another thing that I always hear a lot is like, I don't have time for this. I don't know how to manage my time. And how would you say, like, I know you have like a kind of a formula for this, like you do for everything, but how can you set yourself up that you have that physical and mental energy that leads to having the time to actually execute on all the things that you want to?
So it starts with prioritizing it, right? And so just the first quadrant 2 activity is planning. That's the first quadrant 2 activity because we all get the same 24 hours a day. So not having enough time is not a real thing. That's an excuse, right? That's now that excuse could be engendered by lack of skill. It could also be engendered by misused priorities. It could be because you don't know how to say no. All that is lack of wisdom, right? So that's all lack of wisdom in life, which can be corrected, right? But first, it has to come with intention. You have to have the intention, and then you execute it, and you trust the process, right? Because not enough time is usually not enough energy. That is really it. It is not enough energy. And when you double back and you prioritize first your physical wellness, your physical health, I don't want to use the word wellness because health is a piece of wellness, right? But being healthy is not having wellness. Wellness is bigger than that. Wellness is health in every part of your life, right? It's thriving in every part of your life. That's what wellness actually is. But health is integral in that, right? You can't have wellness without health, but having health is not wellness, right? So that's an important distinction to make. But it starts with health. And it starts with planning, which is quadrant 2 activity, and then physical health, which is quadrant 2 activity, right? That's exercising, that's hydrating, that's putting the right nutrients in your body, that's managing your diet in a proper way and getting enough rest, and also active rest, where you're doing things that aren't focused, where you're enjoying your life, but participating in things that feed your soul, right? That's all part of the physical thing that then feeds into the emotional part, right? So physical and emotional health lead to energy. Right? We all know what it's like to have plenty of time, but not feel like it. I don't feel like doing that. I really want to do that. I don't really feel like doing that. That's energy, right? I mean, let's call it what it is. It's just energy. And so when we do those things, we have energy. And then we can purposefully apply that energy to the tasks, which are what? The process actions. That's it in the areas that you're doing, right? So that's the formula, right? Then you just execute in the process using the energy, which, by the way, you have more of it when you take care of yourself. People who exercise have way more energy than people that don't, right? I mean, that's just the bottom line. They have more oxygen flowing through their body, their brain's lit up, their body is on fire, it's operating, right? So just exercising will give you another hour a day when you fuel yourself, right? It'll give you more time when it becomes habit and you now have much less stress and you're ahead of the game because you're operating in quadrant 2, so you're not dealing with crisis management as a way of life. You're totally jazzed all the time, as much as you possibly can be. And that very feeling of living that way energizes you further. It's actually very, very simple, but it has to start first with the physical health and then the mental health. And they are in that order, right? You got to do it in that order, because one of the leading reasons that mental health is so bad in our culture is because physical health is horrible. Bottom line, you are not going to feel good about yourself if yourself is not good. I'm sorry, it's just fundamental, right? It's just fundamental. And that's the process. So it's simply planning and implementing and those pieces first, and the rest of the dominoes will fall.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Like I've experienced that I didn't have energy and I had to drag myself. And what I also always encountered, maybe somebody else can relate to that too, is I started to complain and talk to people and complain again. And then I had other people had to, in quotation mark, motivate me. Like I had external factors to motivate me to do things. Whereas when you have energy, yes, everything is not great and you still do things that you don't like, but you get them done and you're done with it. And then you can actually focus on the good things and have more time for those good things.
Yes, and you can
Um,
be fully in those things, right?
yes,
If you're not getting stuff done in your life, then you're not fully anywhere, because now you got all that, you're carrying all that baggage. Right? It's just weighing you down.
it is. And I want to move over to because of those two parts, the self-care and the energy management are a big part of what we're doing and what we're talking about in the Three Circles Living podcast all the time. But it's really about that concept of nourish, cleanse, and protect in your life. And it's really about nourishing the good in your life, getting rid of the toxic things, setting boundaries, protecting your boundaries, and then going after your goals and being able to go after them. But what would you say, what does that look like in practice for someone in their health, in their relationships, in their life?
Well, I think in the health, we'd be redundant to go there again.
Yeah.
Because we just talked about that, right? But you take care of your body by nourishing it, cleansing it, protecting it, and then you can target things you want to do better, right? You can target your fitness to go to a higher level. You can target your endurance. You can target different things. You can target a nagging issue, right? You can target that stuff. And you do that with your body, you do it with your mind, and you do it with your soul, right? So you really do it with all parts of you. But I think where you have to think about it in a little deeper context is how do you do it in your relationships and your business, because it's the same philosophy, and it spills out the same way. But unfortunately, for most people, they try to, well, they don't think about it in this context. But if they did, they wouldn't be able to do it in their work or their relationships, because they're not doing it with themselves. And you have to do it with yourself first, because that is the piece. That's what you're taking into a relationship. Like, so many people go to a relationship because they need something from it. That's the wrong reason to go to a relationship. You don't go to a relationship out of need. You go into a relationship to serve in that relationship. Yeah, there are things that you would like to have happen in a relationship, but you can't go take your need to a relationship, right? And so if you don't attend to yourself first, then that's what you're going to do, because you're going to think that that's going to fix you. It's not. You're still going to be just as broken, only now you're going to inflict it on somebody else and make it their issue. And the same with business. You can't go into you can't take your need to business. You got to take your value to business, right? That's an entirely different thing. Nobody's giving you a job because you need one. They're going to give you a job because you're of value. And you bring them something they need. That's an entirely different equation. And so you can look at a relationship. How do you nourish it? Time, attention, right? How do you keep it clean? How do you cleanse it? Being real, being honest, right? How do you protect it, right? You got to look at it, all these things in that context, right? And then you take that philosophy, but again, it's got to start with you. I mean, we don't have enough time to go through everything, right? We knew we would be an hour or so today because we're going to cover a lot of different points. But you got to start with taking care of body, mind, and soul first, and because then you're bringing something of value to a relationship, to a business, and then you can start thinking about targeting things, right? And you can think about how to accomplish certain things because you're bringing so much to it as opposed to coming looking for something to fix you, and that's not a way to go through life, right? There's none of us are owed anything, none of us, right? We're not entitled to anything. This is a side thing, but I'm holding my grandson, my new grandson Landon, last week, and I'm also watching how my daughter, every moment is about taking care of Landon, feeding Landon, changing Landon, how's Landon doing, and I'm thinking about the fact that not a single one of us is self-made, right? We all are here by the grace of someone else, making sure we were here, right? And that's going to be true again in the future, by the way, right? I mean, there's going to come an age where I hate to think about it, but I might be in a diaper again, right? You know what I mean? and so in between, we're entitled to nothing, right? It's up to us to create a life. It's up to us to make an impact. It's up to us to use a resource that we've been blessed with and the gifts and abilities and affinities that we've been given to make a contribution, not to come to life with our hand out, but to come to life from the perspective of how can we serve it? How can we give into it? Yeah, that doesn't mean we don't have needs, but they will get met. They will get met when we operate in the way I'm talking about here. It's not a magic genie, right? We're all going to have periods of time where we feel like we did this and we didn't get what we thought we should. So what? I mean, grow up. It's life. Life isn't fair, but it is just, right? I mean, that's kind of the way to look at it, right? But start with your body. Start with your body.
Yes, I love that. And we talked a lot. Well, you shared a lot of insights and tips and advice and all of it, but knowing it is one thing, taking action is the other part. But that's on you. And that's on each of us to do.
Yeah.
So I know we're almost close to the hour, but we also, after hearing all of that, we also wanted to extend an invitation because we're actually leading a group into what we call the reset program. And it starts with the body, but it also there's a lot of information and education and helps you with your mind and with every other area that we talked about in your life as well, because it's going to set you up to have the energy to do all of that. And just my perspective, and Todd, I'll let you share yours as well. But I was very reluctant because I didn't understand that principle and the foundation on how to build it. But once I did it, everything else, like I said before, fell into place for me. And so I can only highly recommend it. We're going to be a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of support and community. And so that is my invitation to you to check it out. Just ask us, send us a message or send us a chat here, and we can definitely answer any questions about it.
Yeah, and I'll just piggyback on what Chris said. For many, many years, I worked very close with companies and taught their people. And I don't do that anymore. I only serve a specific community, and that community starts from a health perspective first. And we're gonna be doing a large cleanse and reset, because if you don't get the body right and you don't get the mind right, you're just not going to accomplish what you want to accomplish in 2026. That's just a reality. I gave you a lot of things that you could, and Chris, you had a lot of great things to say today. You got a lot of stuff that you could be actionable about. But I don't care what your business goals are, they won't be sustainable, and they likely won't happen unless you truly understand how to take care of yourself. And that's what we're going to do in the next 21 days, starting next Monday. So if you want to learn what we're doing, you will completely detox your body. You will dramatically reduce your inflammation, which will change your physical and mental energy, which is everything. And not to mention reshape yourself a little so you feel better about yourself in that regard. Reach out and we'll share what we're doing. But hopefully you got a lot from today, and you will put it into play, because this is just the real stuff. This podcast is to serve. It's not so we're not trying to monetize our podcast. We do this to serve. I don't live for likes. I don't really care about that. I live for the person that I can see has gotten to make a great change, because that's what matters. So, Chris, thanks again for all that you do. You're awesome, really awesome.
Thank
And
you.
for those of you who saw us live, this won't be a normal thing, but I hope you enjoyed it live. All right, we're
Awesome.
signing off.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.